Pompeii. In AD 79, Mount Vesuvius erupted above a busy city in Roman Italy. Pompeii had bakeries, bathhouses, temples, and crowded streets. Then ash and volcanic stone began falling from the sky. Roofs collapsed. People fled. Within hours, the city disappeared beneath several meters of debris. Its name survived in ancient writing, but the streets themselves remained sealed underground. Formal excavations began in the middle of the 18th century. Workers expected statues and treasure. Instead, they uncovered an entire urban world. Walls still carried election slogans and scratched jokes. Bread remained carbonized inside ovens. Empty spaces in the hardened ash revealed where wooden doors, furniture, and human bodies had once been. Pompeii was not preserved because anyone planned to save it. It survived because the same eruption that destroyed the city also sealed it away from weather, rebuilding, and time. Vesuvius erased Pompeii from the map. Then ash returned it almost room by room. Tikal. Deep in the rainforests of northern Guatemala, stone temples rise above an ocean of trees. They belong to Tikal, one of the most powerful cities of the ancient Maya world. At its height, Tikal contained palaces, reservoirs, plazas, roads, homes, and enormous pyramid temples. It was a center of Maya power for centuries. Near the end of the 9th century, construction slowed and the population declined. Warfare, instability, drought, and pressure on resources may all have contributed. The forest gradually covered roads and courtyards. Roots entered buildings. Soil collected over stone platforms until much of the city looked like natural hills. Tikal was never forgotten by local Maya communities, but 19th century expeditions brought it into international archaeology, and later excavations revealed its scale beneath the canopy. Even now, much of Tikal remains covered by forest. The city did not vanish. The jungle simply became its roof. Mohenjo-daro. In the early 20th century, archaeologist R.D. Banerjee was examining a mound in what is now Pakistan. A Buddhist structure stood on top, but objects beneath it suggested something far older. Excavations beginning in the 1920s uncovered streets built more than 4,000 years ago. This was Mohenjo-daro, one of the largest cities of the Indus civilization. Its neighborhoods followed an organized plan. Standardized bricks formed houses. Wells supplied water, covered drains carried waste away, and the Great Bath stood near the raised center. Only about 1/3 of the site has been excavated. The rest remains underground, partly because exposing more brickwork would leave it vulnerable to salt, heat, rain, and erosion. Its people left thousands of symbols on seals and objects, but their script has never been conclusively deciphered. We do not know what they called their city. Archaeologists recovered its streets. Its name is still missing. Hattusa. For centuries, the Hittites were known mainly through texts written by their rivals and neighbors. They had ruled a powerful empire across Anatolia and northern Syria. Around the end of the Bronze Age, that system collapsed. Their capital disappeared from memory. In the 19th century, travelers reached enormous ruins near the modern Turkish village of Bogazkoy. Massive walls crossed rocky hills. Stone lions guarded a gateway. But no one could initially prove which ancient city this had been. Early 20th century excavations uncovered royal buildings, temples, fortifications, and archives containing thousands of cuneiform tablets. The tablets identified the site as Hattusa, capital of the Hittite Empire. Among the documents were laws, rituals, diplomatic letters, and the Hittite version of a peace treaty with Egypt. The empire had not vanished without leaving an explanation. Its records were still sitting inside the capital. The city was found in stone. Its identity was found in clay. Troy. For more than 2,000 years, Troy existed between literature and history. Homer's Iliad described a wealthy, fortified city besieged by a Greek army. But was Troy a real place, or only the setting of an ancient epic? In the 19th century, Frank Calvert argued that the mound of Hisarlik in northwestern Turkey contained the answer. Heinrich Schliemann began large excavations there in 1870. His methods were destructive. A huge trench damaged layers he was trying to understand. Schliemann also claimed gold objects belonged to King Priam, although the treasure was more than 1,000 years older than the likely period of the Trojan War. But Hisarlik truly did contain Troy. Later archaeology revealed not one city, but settlements built, destroyed, and rebuilt across roughly 4,000 years. Several layers contained strong walls and evidence of destruction. Archaeology did not prove every scene in the Iliad. It proved that beneath the legend, there was a city. Caral. On a dry terrace above Peru's Supe Valley, a group of enormous mounds once looked like natural hills. When archaeologists began systematic work there in the 1990s, the hills became pyramids, plazas, stairways, and sunken circular courts. The city was Caral, built around 5,000 years ago. It is the oldest known center of civilization in the Americas and developed in the era of Egypt's first pyramids. Caral belonged to a society that connected fishing communities on the Pacific coast with farmers farther inland. Archaeologists uncovered monumental architecture, woven bags used to carry construction stones, and flutes made from animal bones. Yet, Caral developed before pottery became common there. Much of its evidence came from architecture, plant remains, textiles, and objects preserved by the desert climate. The pyramids had been visible for centuries. What disappeared was the knowledge of who built them. Akrotiri. More than 3,500 years ago, earthquakes shook a prosperous settlement on the island now called Santorini. The residents appeared to have recognized the warning. They gathered belongings and left. Then the volcano of Thera erupted, covering the town in ash and pumice. The ancient name of the settlement is unknown. Today it is called Akrotiri, after a nearby modern village. In 1967, Greek archaeologist Spiridon Marinatos began a major excavation. Beneath the volcanic material were paved streets, workshops, drainage, and buildings preserved several stories high. Walls carried vivid paintings of ships, flowers, animals, and people. Storage jars held traces of food. But unlike Pompeii, archaeologists found no bodies and almost no precious objects, suggesting residents had time to escape. The eruption preserved a disaster site without preserving its victims. Akrotiri was not a city caught by surprise. It was a city abandoned just before the end. Mahendraparvata. On Cambodia's Phnom Kulen Plateau, stone temples had been known for generations, but the forest around them concealed something much larger. Inscriptions described Mahendraparvata, an early 9th century capital of the Khmer Empire. Archaeologists suspected a city surrounded the temples, but vegetation made its shape almost impossible to see from the ground. Then researchers looked from the air. Aircraft fired thousands of laser pulses through gaps in the forest canopy. By measuring the reflections, LiDAR technology created a map of the terrain beneath the trees. The results revealed a grid: roads, neighborhoods, water channels, embankments, temples, and an enormous unfinished reservoir. Features that looked random on foot formed clear patterns from above. Mahendraparvata was not uncovered by removing the jungle or excavating every street. The forest remained exactly where it was. The city appeared when technology made the trees invisible. Helike. In the winter of 373 BCE, an earthquake struck the Greek city of Helike near the Gulf of Corinth. Ancient writers described collapsing ground, water rushing inland, and a city disappearing in one night. Helike had been a religious center dedicated to Poseidon. Its destruction became a famous warning about the sea. For centuries, searchers assumed the ruins must lie beneath the gulf. Some ancient accounts even claimed that fishermen could see buildings underwater. The Helike project began a systematic search in 1988. But instead of concentrating only offshore, researchers investigated the coastal plain. In 2001, they identified remains beneath sediment in what had once been a lagoon. Earthquake damage, pottery, roads, and buildings matched ancient descriptions. Rivers had gradually filled the lagoon and turned it into dry land. Everyone searched for Helike beneath the sea. The lost city was waiting beneath a field. Thonis-Heracleion. Ancient Egyptian and Greek texts described a wealthy port near the mouth of the Nile. Egyptians called it Thonis. Greeks called it Heracleion. Scholars wondered whether these were different cities or whether ancient writers had exaggerated the port. Then, in 2000, a team led by underwater archaeologist Franck Godillot located ruins beneath Abu Qir Bay, several kilometers off the Egyptian coast. Divers entered water clouded with sediment. Surveys revealed walls, canals, temples, and harbors beneath the seabed. Excavations uncovered colossal statues, coins, anchors, shipwrecks, and an inscription bearing the city's Egyptian name. The evidence showed that Thonis and Heracleion were the same place. The port had controlled maritime access into Egypt before Alexandria rose. Earthquakes, unstable ground, rising water, and soil liquefaction gradually pulled it into the Mediterranean. The texts had preserved its story. The sea had preserved the city. When the divers found it, two ancient names became one lost world.